right, we're live.
Good evening and welcome to the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce and Community Partners Candidate Forum. Hi, I'm Raphael Henderson with Wells Fargo and chair of the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce Board and a proud resident of Pasadena. I want to thank and acknowledge tonight's sponsors and our community partners, the Community Women's Vital Voices, the First AME Church, the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, the Junior League of Pasadena, the League of Women Voters Pasadena area, and the Pasadena branch of the NAACP. Tonight, we're fortunate in having 4 candidates from 2 districts who are on your ballot this spring. We reached out to all the candidates on the June's ballots, and these accepted our invitation. From District 3, we have Brandon Lamar and also John Kennedy. From District 7, we have Alan Shay and Jason Lyon. We have sourced questions from our partners, but if a member of the audience asks a question, we will take every opportunity to present it to the candidate, time permitted. Now, tonight's format is as follows. We'll start with the 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. Then we will ask a question of all the candidates and go in a revolving order to answer each question by district. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question. We will ask our final question tonight around 6 p.m. And then following that, we'll invite each candidate to present a 2-minute closing statement in reverse order from the opening statement. My fellow board member, Charlotte Lacey of the Pasadena Humane and the Junior League will be keeping time, so candidates, please look to her for cues. I will now invite the candidates to give an opening statement, and we drew randomly to determine who would speak first from each district. So first, we'll hear from John Kennedy, District 3.
My name is John Kennedy, and I ask for your vote once again as I seek re-election. I'm honored to be endorsed by Congressmember Judy Chu, Assemblymember Chris Holden, Supervisor Catherine Barger, 4 of my colleagues on the Pasadena City Council, the County Federation of Labor, the BizFed PAC, LA League of Conservation Voters, the Southern California Armenian Democrats, ACT, a Royal Democratic Club, and by the Star News and LA Sentinel and the Pasadena Police Officers Association. I ask for your vote because although we have accomplished much, we have unfinished business. In Pasadena, I led the effort to establish our own Community Police Oversight Commission and to require body-worn cameras. But now we must keep working to ensure community safety, to reduce violence, and to implement recommendations the commission may bring forward. We have already added over 1,000 new units of housing, but I will demand that we add 3,000 more units of affordable housing in my next term. 4 projects are already underway in District 3, with another about to start. Increasing the supply of affordable housing is the only way to truly confront the housing crisis that many Pasadena families now face.
30 seconds.
Pasadena is finally, at my insistence, starting a major rehab project of the Sunset Reservoir 1 and 2. I seek re-election because I believe my record of accomplishment speaks to the importance of working both policymakers and constituents, bringing us together in District 3 and building one Pasadena. Thank you.
Thank you. That is time.
Brandon Lamar.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Brandon Lamar, born and raised here in Pasadena. Grew up and went to PUSD schools, attended city programs, and I've also worked for the city for a short period of time. Currently, I serve as the chair of the Human Relations Commission. I've been on that commission for 6 years, and I've chaired the commission for a little bit over 1 year now. Just a little bit about me and the community. I was one of the teams who created the Community Bill of Rights that designed, advocated, and organized for the Civilian Oversight Commission, which we currently have. And the first person running that endorsed and supported rent control openly. I've openly advocated and organized for police reform, housing rights, immigration rights, productive rights, reproductive rights, workers' rights, and children's and youth services. Currently, I'm endorsed by Planned Parenthood, Pasadena Foothill Democrats, Black Los Angeles Young Democrats, San Fernando Valley Democrats, Feel the Burn Democrats, Korean American, and the Korean American Democrats. And then I recently received the endorsement of the Democratic Party for the Protection of Animals. And so I'm so happy and excited that to receive these Democratic groups and voices of the community. I'm running because I want safer streets. There have been way too many shooting and violent crimes happening in District 3 alone. I'm running because we have to have rent control all over Pasadena so that we can start to afford to live here, not just affordable housing. Yes, we need to build more affordable housing, but we also have to have rent control as well. I'm running to help small businesses. I'm running to create long-lasting programs in our district and in our community for young people and their families. And so I'm so glad to be here and can't wait to get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Raphael, you're muted, but I think I saw my name.
I'm sorry, and I'm trying to be respectful and not have any background noise. And you are 100% correct. From District 7, we have Jason Lyon.
Thank you very much. My name is Jason Lyon. I am an attorney by trade and the vice chair of the Pasadena Planning Commission. I'm running for City Council in District 7 for two reasons. One, I love this city. I have been fortunate to live in a few great cities in my life, and there is no place like Pasadena. It is a unique combination of kind of world-class amenities with a small town feel, and that is extraordinary. And I sit down here at my desk in this office every day and I look out my window right there at the dome of City Hall, right out my window, and think how fortunate I am to live in this place. The second reason I'm running is to change the tone of our political conversation. We have gotten to a place, particularly in our national politics, where we think of each other as enemies because we disagree about policy. And that is corrosive and dangerous. And I'm running to create a conversation where every idea is welcome at the table. I am running in particular at this time to create a more livable, walkable, and sustainable Pasadena. And I have some very specific proposals about how to achieve that I hope we'll get a chance to talk about tonight. You can also find more about those on my campaign website, which is jasonlyonforpasadena.com. I am proud to be endorsed by Congressmember Judy Chu, State Senator Anthony Portantino, Supervisor Catherine Barger, the Pasadena Star News, the LA County Democrats, the LA County Federation of Labor, the LA County Business Federation, Planned Parenthood, Pasadena, San Gabriel Valley, Stonewall Democrats, both of our local Democratic clubs, and a mix of over 80 individuals and organizations from our area. And I would be honored to serve as your city council member. Thank you.
And rounding us out is Alan Shay, District 7.
Thank you, Raphael Henderson, fellow Trojan and classmate back in the day. And I really enjoy this type of platform because it gives community a chance to see our evolution. One of the most crucial things that I've learned is true love, not counterfeit love. True love is going through the journey, the hard work, and earning it through what the power of your community instills in you and experiencing that journey. I am one of those lucky individuals here in Pasadena, where I'm a product of Pasadena, USD student, graduated from John Muir High School, graduated from USC, graduated from law school, hold a broker's license, been extremely active in developing businesses throughout Pasadena and Altadena area. I'm a 40-year business owner. 35 of those 40 years have been on South Lake in the South Lake Business District. I have a long history of sustainable businesses throughout the city and working with different organizations. And most of all, the real reason I think it's imperative that District 7 look at someone with real trained experience of business sustainability, housing sustainability, as I've done as a four-term city commissioner for the Northwest after the recession. After the recession, to make sure stability was brought about the community and brought forth, in fact, all of the new housing that came after the recession, including senior citizen, homelessness or homeless, as well as affordable housing. So it's a very extensive, and hopefully we'll have enough time to go over all of it. Thank you.
Fantastic. And thank you all for your opening statements. We'll now move into our questions. And as a reminder, each question will have a 2-minute answer. So the first question goes to District 3, Brandon, and then it'll be followed by Councilmember Kennedy. Do you think Pasadena's government wants this to be a fair and equitable city for all its residents?
I think that the heart is there. I think the heart of the government is there. I think we have a long way to go. I think that at times we have seen that our local and some of our current government officials overlook the voices of the community, especially when it's the majority of the voices of the community. And I think that we have to start going back into community first initiative, meaning uplifting the voices of the community, uplifting the concerns of the community. And the only way that we can do that is by being present in the community. And so I think at times it is definitely overlooked. And I am definitely running so that those voices and those concerns are no longer overlooked, that we can actually get sustainable housing, that we can actually have rent control, and that also we can have more accountability, not only in our streets, but also with our law enforcement as well. And so it's time for the overlooking to stop happening. So in some ways, yes, I do believe it.
John Kennedy.
Please repeat the question.
The question, do you think Pasadena's government wants this to be a fair and equitable city for all its residents?
If you look at the demographics of the city council, in a sense, you get an answer. You have Jean Masuda, who is Asian American. You have Victor Godro, who is Mexican American or Latino. You have 3 African Americans serving on the city council. You have 2 extraordinary women. You have Councilmember Jess Rivas, and of course you have longtime Councilmember Steve Madison. So we represent not just a melting pot of Pasadena, we represent the heart of Pasadena. And that heart beats strong, and it beats with diversity that we celebrate daily. And then what makes us honest in terms of our service, we have the opportunity to appoint residents like some who are running for city council on the various committees and commissions that exist in the city of Pasadena. Who better to share what they believe is the heart of the community in conjunction with the elected representative? So we've given that opportunity to our residents, our friends, people who are qualified to provide an opinion or research on a panoply of different issues affecting the city of Pasadena. So yes, we are totally committed to that great diversity of our city, and we are totally committed to equity in our city. Equity horizontally and vertically. meaning horizontally and vertically. So I'm very, very proud to serve with my colleagues on the city council. I'm very proud that 4 of my colleagues have endorsed me in my reelection bid. I'm
That is
very
time.
I'm very
Sorry.
proud that the residents of the city of Pasadena
Thank you.
represent the best of our community.
Thank you. Alan Shay.
Well, I think you touched upon, Mr. Henderson, a very critical question in our day and time. As far as our governance, I think our governance has to be more in tune with the voice of the people to really get a true assessment of your answer. And the reason why I'm saying that is because as a commissioner of Northwest for over a decade, serving 4 terms in the Northwest after the recession, it spoke volume as to what's needed, how it's needed, and to bring an equitable stake for Pasadena. And as you can see, and as everyone knows, the gentrification and the impact it has had, the housing crises that we're in, and certainly the, I'll call it the flight of a lot of the long-term Pasadena residents and what they have, or the reason why they've left Pasadena. So I think that speaks to the real essence of the governance and whether they're hearing the voice of the community to sustain a true effect of someone who's paying attention to the voters, to the residents. And that is why I'm running for District 7, is because I want the voters to know they have someone who understands that and who can bring that balance, who can bring those equity shares to everyone, because I've experienced it. And after almost 12 years of seeing it in the Northwest, I definitely have a true understanding of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Lyon.
I appreciate the question. The government of Pasadena is a lot of people. We're not governed by an individual or even a single body. Ultimately, all the decisions in the city rest with the city council. We also, are a city manager city, so that role is crucial in the government, and we are in the process of looking for a city manager. Certainly, as I have said many times, I think we're looking for an individual who has a heart for equity and a heart for people. But overall, I would say, yes, the city desires to be a fair and equitable community. We are, I think, a ways from achieving that. The biggest inequity, I think, that we see right now is the growing economic divide in our city. We really risk becoming a city of the very, very wealthy and the very, very poor. We are not affordably housing anyone really from 180% of area median income and down. We do okay with housing the very, very indigent, actually, but everyone in between the very rich and the very poor, we are not housing. And I think until we meaningfully address that situation, we can't fully claim the mantle of being a fair and equitable city. And then addressing that means figuring out where we want to put housing and how we're going to pay for it.
30 seconds.
And how to strike a balance with that so that we keep Pasadena, Pasadena. And I think we do that with a mix of concentrating density along our transit corridors and adaptive reuse of existing buildings, so we use what we have more effectively. I want to take a minute to bounce off of Councilmember Kennedy's discussion of diversity on the council. We do have an incredibly diverse council. There is one category we haven't yet elected yet, which is that we have never had an openly LGBTQ citywide elected official in any district or citywide, and I would be the first if elected. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to stay in District 7, and this question will first be answered by Alan Shay. Pasadena is receiving tens of millions of dollars in federal relief funds related to COVID-19. How can those funds be best spent to achieve the goals of the feds and support our community? Would you use some of those funds for grants to struggling locally owned small businesses?
Well, unfortunately, your question was broken up, so I didn't quite catch it all.
Okay, so first, it was in reference to the city receiving tens of millions of dollars in federal funds for COVID relief. How can those funds be best spent to achieve the goals that the feds had in play or in mind and support our communities? Second, would you use some of those funds for small businesses?
Well, I believe that we can certainly take those funds and jumpstart South Lake Business District. There would be a great opportunity for the city of Pasadena to use that as a starting point and then spread that over to the east boundary lines of District 7 off of Colorado and Allen area to make sure that those small businesses are stabilized and to make sure that anything that's needed around there to stabilize activity, because over on the east boundary side, we have a larger homeless challenge, and to make sure they are also participants in the funding sources in whatever way possible. Because we haven't had a real structure in place to address it or a campaign by the city, I can only say that I would take the examples from the initiatives that were established under my leadership as a chairperson for the Northwest, and that was to team up with the nonprofit organizations to make sure that they are participating with dividing the funding to sources like small businesses and people who are in need of help in administrating
30 seconds.
medication for the COVID vaccination. I think those are the things that would be needed because they have been proven to work in the Northwest. And we can start with an example of it and move forward. Thank you.
Great. And again, Jason, the question, Pasadena's receiving several $1 million in Fed funds for COVID. How best to utilize those funds, and would they be allocated towards small business?
So I think job one with COVID relief would normally be to make sure that we're getting people vaccinated, that we are educating people about vaccines and getting vaccines into arms. But as it happens, we are one of 2 cities in the county that has our own public health department, and they have done an extraordinary job on that front. I think in 98 or 99% of eligible Pasadenans have at least one shot, and are something like 88, 90% of Pasadenans are fully vaccinated. So we're covered on that front, which means that we're freeing up those funds to shore up the city economically. I would say that we could use those funds and should use those funds to subsidize rents both on the residential side and the commercial side. We have housing providers in the city who've been suffering under our eviction moratorium, which I think was a fully necessary measure to make sure that we stabilized our economy and our housing market and kept people in homes. But it did mean that some mom and pop landlords were not receiving rents. And so I think we could make that up to them and make sure that tenants are continuing to pay rents going forward with a part of those funds. And then with the other part of those funds, I would like to see us fill up some of those many vacant retail locations along South Lake. It is one of our signature retail districts in the city, and it's hurting right now. We have vacancies all up and down the street. We're doing okay on restaurants, but really not anywhere else. And I would like to see a program to help small locally owned businesses get into those locations and bring back walkers to South Lake. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Kennedy, same question.
Thank you very much for the question. You are speaking specifically, I believe, about ARPA funds from the federal government that are coming back to the city related to COVID. So one of the places that we must use those funds for, in my view, is to help tenants as we lift the moratorium and provide some assistance there with their rents and catching up with their rents to continue to be a part of this wonderful city called Pasadena. Also, I'm advocating that we create a program for public safety grants. A lot of the residents of the city of Pasadena who are concerned about public safety have ideas that are not necessarily law enforcement driven on how to make our city better and safer. So I'd like to see us use part of those funds to provide $5,000 grants that could be leveraged, if you will, programmatically to help different organizations throughout our city. And there could be fiscal agents serving to help the smaller nonprofits. Then I would like to see us have a micro loan program to start businesses in our city or to assist small businesses ramp up their businesses, because we know
30 seconds.
that hiring local builds a better community. And so that's what I want to see happen with those funds. I'm confident that we have that possibility to use those funds in part to hire our children, young people in our community. Working with my colleagues on the council, I hope that's what we are going to do. Thank you for the opportunity.
And lastly, Brandon Lamar.
Thank you. And I think it's an amazing question. First thing, I definitely think that some of the funds should go to tenants who are at the verge of still being displaced from COVID. I think that we still haven't answered those questions. Yes, we had some help, but there's still some help that is needed, especially since our current city council ended our current plan. And so I think that that definitely is in place for us to continue to help not only the tenants, but also making sure that landlords are covered as well, because they still have mortgages that they have to pay as well. So I think that's a part of the plan. Second thing that I would do with a portion of that money is actually create and go into our homeless and help our homeless to create tiny homes in our Pasadena area to actually start helping to get our young, only our young people, but also our homeless population off of the streets. I think that's one thing that we did not do. Sorry about that. Can't control 911, right? So I think that's one thing that we did not do well in. Yes, we did house them in motels and we gave them motel vouchers, but at the end of that, they were still on the streets. So I think that's another portion that should go there. The next portion that I think should go to prevention and intervention programs. And during this time of COVID, we've seen a spike in crime all across the board, domestic violence, gun violence, and the list goes on and on. And so I think that we have to focus also money towards the prevention and intervention of public safety in our community. And the last thing I'll say is towards your question is yes. I do think that some of these funds should go to small business to help them to brand and market their businesses, to help them fund and get off the ground. And then also for training for small businesses on how to maintain their business and keep it going. Thank you so much.
Great. And you afforded us a nice opportunity for transition into our housing crisis. And so I'm going to stay in District 3. And Brandon, I'll pose this question to you initially. How would you like the city of Pasadena to address the lack of affordable housing for its residents and workers?
So I think that we have to look at, first off, I think that we have to put our feet in their shoes. There's no one that is on our current city council that is a tenant. So it's amazing that, we try to speak for tenants, but nobody is actually a tenant. And so I think that we have to look at what is affordable and what it is for all accounts for low income, and for moderate incomes. And I think one of the plans is to actually look at some of the already established commercial buildings that are not being used anymore. And we can actually look at that at being transitioning that to more affordable housing. We also have our planning commission that is already in the looks at looking at unused church land for affordable housing as well. And then there's so many things that, we can do, but then I think also we have to work on lowering rent that we already have in Pasadena, and also establishing, and I keep saying it, rent control, because there's no current plan right now that we have to sustain rent and stop it from going up at a high rate. And so we have families moving left and right. We have our schools that are closing left and right because people ultimately cannot afford to live here in Pasadena, and we have to do something about it. This is not just a crisis that's been happening for the last 1 or 2 years, but this is a crisis that we've been seeing so far for the last 10 plus years. And so we have to do something about it. It's an urgent need for us to have not only rent control, but also to have affordable housing in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And John Kennedy.
In Pasadena, the only solution to our current housing crisis and the only way actually to reduce rents is to build more affordable housing. That is why I've worked with my colleagues and the people of Pasadena to build 1,000 units of affordable housing in the past several years. 4 more projects are underway right now in my district, adding another 250 units, and a new project with 69 units for formerly homeless seniors, including full wraparound services, is about to start construction at Fair Oaks and Orange Grove. We have taken action, and we have strong, concrete results that have helped people get housed and be able to stay housed in Pasadena. It is making a difference in the lives of people, but we need to do more. I will insist that we build another 3,000 units of affordable housing distributed equitably across our city, with 15% of those units reserved for the extremely low income residents, many of whom are now unhoused. I am for one Pasadena, not house owners versus apartment dwellers, not condo owners versus senior citizens, fixed income renters. We need to stop pitting owners against renters. Seniors should not be vilified because they bought a house and worked all their lives to pay it off. And some of us are still paying it off. They are proud homeowners and do not deserve to be vilified. And shouldn't we protect mom and pop landlords rather than imposing additional burdens? Let's stop attacking folks for owning a condo or owning a house. Let's get everyone at all income levels decent and affordable housing in the great city of Pasadena.
Thank you, John. And let's go to District 7, Jason.
Thank you. So the state's approach to the affordable housing crisis has basically been to override local zoning in favor of developers of market rate housing if the developer will agree to include some percentage of affordable units along with the market rate units. In Pasadena, market rate looks like a condo that sells for $1 million or $2 million. And we already require developers of 10 or more units to set aside 20% for affordability from mid-income and down. So automatically under state law, anyone building 10 or more units in Pasadena is entitled to make that development bigger and taller and denser without necessarily helping our city. And that might be okay if it were leading to a substantial reduction of our housing crisis. But the fact is it's not. We need to build 9,400 units of affordable housing in the next 8.5 years. To do that with our 80-20 inclusionary formula, we would need to build 60,000 units of housing in this city to get those 9,000 units. that would radically change the face of this city. And we live in Pasadena because we love Pasadena and we like how it is and how it feels. So we don't want to live in downtown LA. So how do we both accomplish the housing need and maintain the character of our community? To the extent we need new construction, we need to concentrate that along our transit corridors and the major thoroughfares in the city. Colorado can take some more height. But I'm most excited about our work on the Planning Commission to create a comprehensive adaptive reuse ordinance that would allow us to convert underutilized commercial space, industrial space, and institutional space into housing. And in a city like Pasadena, where there is often public opposition to a lot of new development, I think that presents a realistic political path forward to get us to the housing we need while maintaining and preserving the character of our city. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. And rounding us out, Alan.
Well, I think that's always a very challenging analysis that people could make about housing and how to fix it. As a real estate broker, as a business owner, as I said, for over 40 years, my primary focus has been on housing and getting people to get into housing. I think with what we're going to be up against is first and foremost, finding the appropriate land for development because of the areas in Pasadena. We may have some access lands, but because we are already a very small city and most things are built out pretty much, it's going to be a high premium for cost and acquisition. So I think those are kind of a bigger challenge. I think the next step that we're going to have a challenge with is how do we get people to afford these housing, okay? And I've worked with first-time buyers in Pasadena through our affordable housing. And as a commissioner of Pasadena's Northwest, I've pushed for that for the last 10 years. That is why Northwest Pasadena has had an influx of affordable housing. But it took years and it took a lot of costs. Those things have to be really developed. And the only way I can see that happening is if we as a city become very assertive
30 seconds.
in getting part of that $10.3 billion grant funding that was just announced by HUD for this very purpose. So we can then identify how we can then create the type of housing and those individuals who would be eligible to get those homes. Thank you.
Great, and thank you, Alan. Okay, let's stay in District 7, and I'm going to pose the question to Jason first. Do you see the Rose Bowl as a community asset? If the bowl cannot be self-sufficient and remain viable, do you favor the city finding ways to support the Rose Bowl financially?
The Rose Bowl is undoubtedly one of the symbols of our city and one of the things that makes Pasadena a world-class city. It is the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl are signatures for our city. It is undoubtedly true that our debt service on the Rose Bowl is unsustainable, and we do have to figure out a path forward. Right now, we're doing okay. This year, things are looking up. I don't think it is reasonable to expect to get rid of it, to close it down. I don't think anyone in the city would want that, but we do have to figure out a way to make it economically viable, whether that's going to be more events that are smaller, whether it's going to be longer term contracts with other sporting outlets, like we've just added professional soccer venue events for the next year, whether that's going to be some additional development around it to make the area more of a draw. I think we need to have a robust public conversation to figure that out and to think about. There are a lot of considerations. There are the traffic considerations, the environmental considerations, the nearby residents considerations, but undoubtedly the Rose Bowl remains an asset of our city and a jewel of Pasadena. And we have to find a way to make it work.
Thank you, Jason. Alan Shay.
Well, as someone who had the great opportunity of playing in the Rose Bowl and growing up with the Rose Bowl, and as a kid seeing all the great fireworks shows at the Rose Bowl, it is truly a treasure that we have. I do believe that as a business owner and someone who understands the dynamic of cost and finance, we have to look at the bottom line, and that is how do we eliminate the debts on the Rose Bowl, because they can become crippling in the event we continue to have challenges with COVID and other unforeseen financial challenges in the future. I believe, and in my experience with the Rose Bowl, we've looked into other options that could mitigate or eliminate the debt that they currently are experiencing, but that's going to take the choices of the leaders, the city manager, and people in entertaining those type of options, because there are options there that can really lose creative and can really have a very forward-thinking approach to resolving those debt factors. So that's how I see it.
Thank you, Alan. John Kennedy.
Well, the Rose Bowl is an extraordinary asset for our community. The Rose Bowl operating company was created to give some insulation between city government and the Rose Bowl, but the bottom line is that the taxpayers are responsible for the debt at the Rose Bowl. So we have to deal with the debt. There's no other way to get around it. And one way to deal with the debt is to ensure that we have the number of displacement events where we can, in fact, have the resources to pay down the bond debt. Everything has to be on the table now. Everything has to be on the table, including there is an opportunity to build a world-class hotel, a four-season, something of that magnitude in an area that is not excluded by the charter and state law at the Rose Bowl area. Also, we need to anchor the Rose Bowl with possibly a soccer franchise. And the way we do that is to convince the neighbors around the Rose Bowl and then the city as a whole that we have to do something drastically different if we're going to pay off $200 million in bond debt. Not only do we have to pay off the $200 million in bond
30
debt,
seconds.
we also must reinvest in the Rose Bowl to make sure it is an asset for our children, grandchildren, and into perpetuity. So there are a lot of options, and we have to pursue them all for the health of our community. Thank you for the opportunity to address the question.
Thank you, John. And lastly, Brandon.
Thank you. I think it's a great question and a simple question. Let me try to give you a simple answer. My answer is yes. I think that there's so much history with the Rose Bowl. With two rival local high schools playing at the Rose Bowl every single year, with UCLA playing there, and so many more events that Parker Recreation throws. And then not only that, but every single day we have hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people that walk around the Rose Bowl and that utilize our Rose Bowl. So it's definitely needed. It's big time needed. And so if something that has a history and that is a monumental place in our city, I think that we have to do what we have to do to sustain that. We could have sustained it if we walked in with the NFL when they wanted to work with us, but we didn't take that at heart. And so now we're paying for that currently. And so, I think it's time for us to make some hard decisions when it comes to our Rose Bowl to be able to sustain it and to keep it here and to also maximize its use. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think we haven't maximized the use of the Rose Bowl, and we have to do that so we can get our bang for our buck. So yeah, hopefully that was simple enough.
Thank you, Brandon. Let's stay in District 3. And the question is, over the years, freeway construction has displaced 22,000 mostly middle-class African Americans, and demolished 11,000 homes. Caltrans is set to turn the 710 stub land over to the city of Pasadena in June. Should that land or funds that flow to the city from that land be used to benefit the African American community? We'll start with you, Brandon.
So yes, I think it should be used to create something for everyone that was displaced out of the area, not just our African American families, but everyone that was displaced. But then also that's going to take time, right? It's going to take time to build. It's going to take time for it to happen. And it's a tragedy that it did happen, and it's such a tragedy that, you know, we always make mistakes, and then later on down the line we come back and we apologize for the mistake, and then we try to rectify the mistake. But how about let's not make the mistake at all? And so yes, I do think that housing should definitely prioritize those who have lost and been misplaced. Because, you know, being a renter and just being I just got engaged 2 months ago. You know, we're looking to also buy in Pasadena, but at the rate that is going right now, we can't. And so that's so many of other people. And so that's why we're looking at ways to definitely help people to be able to buy, but also sustain them as they're renting. And so to your question, yes, I do think that it should be for people, not only just people of color, but people who have been displaced from that area, period. And so hopefully we can do our part to help find those families. I'm pretty sure that some of those people who were living there before are not, you know, around now, but hopefully we can do something for their families. Thank you.
John Kennedy. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you. It has been my life mission to address the wrongs done by the city of Pasadena, the state, to African Americans, Japanese Americans, and Latinos. With the 710 stub repatriation, we have an opportunity to return 52 acres to the city of Pasadena. Thank you to Senator Portantino and Assemblyman Chris Holden. That is actually going to happen. So with the 52 acres, we have an opportunity to eliminate the housing crisis in the city of Pasadena by building sufficient amount of housing to house all of those persons who are in need of housing. Additionally, you can't get around the fact that a form of reparations are due to the African American community, Japanese American community, and the Latino community that was displaced by bad, and some would say evil, public policy. Those homes were taken by eminent domain. When I was a kid, there was about 26,000 African Americans in the city of Pasadena. And in large measure, that changed because of bad public policy. Here with the 710 stub, we have an opportunity to change those decisions and change them over time rather quickly. I and my colleagues on the City of Pasadena City Council are totally committed to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Alan Shay.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson, for insightful consideration that Pasadena should really initiate in a very open approach. And the reason I say that is because I am one of those displaced families that lived off Pasadena Avenue back in 63, 64. And we had to move further northwest in Pasadena. And I recall all of the challenges that my Asian neighbors and myself, my family, we went through in that shift. To recover from that has to be done in a manner which it not only stands for today's proposition, but it has to be insured for the future so this doesn't happen. Because we know in American history, there is a pattern of systemic racism, issues repeating themselves. And even if we were to reapportion that property back to Black families, that still doesn't ensure that Black families are going to be able to see that as generational wealth in 20 to 30 years. So I hope that, and moving forward with this proposal, that it also has some solid safeguards in there for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And lastly, Jason?
Thank you. I think we're long past the time when Pasadena should own and account for some of the uglier parts of our history. Not only the takings along the 710 corridor, but our history of redlining, which, you know, on the Planning Commission, we still see the very present effects of redlining in the city today. And trying to zone to combat that is tricky business. And it's time for us to sort of own and try to atone for those wrongs. One of the ways that we can do that is by creating programs to house Black, Brown, and Asian American families who were displaced or disadvantaged by actions of the city, one of those being the eminent domain along the 710 corridor. How we do that is, I think, is a slightly more difficult thing unless we create a portion of the housing program that specifically serves disadvantaged communities, but I think it is doable. All of this assumes that we're going to put housing in that those 52 acres that we're getting back from the state. And I think that is my hope that at least part of that space is set aside for affordable housing.
30 seconds.
And part of that space is set aside for green space for the city, which we also very much need. Before we make that decision, I think we need a meaningful and thoughtful citywide conversation about what we want to do with this once in a generation opportunity to build a whole new part of our city. I do hope housing is part of it. Thank you.
Fantastic. And thank you, Jason. This will be the final question of the evening before we move into our final statements. And I am going to stay with District 7. And Jason, I'll start with you. Do you think that Pasadena is doing its part to alleviate greenhouse gas emissions to protect the environment? Secondarily, are there initiatives you would like Pasadena to undertake that we are not doing currently?
Thank you for this question. It's one of the top 3 issues of my campaign and an issue that is very meaningfully to me personally. As a dad of 2 boys, I want to make sure that this city we love is here for generations to come. I don't think we are doing everything we could be doing to make us a truly environmentally sustainable city. I would like to do a number of things. First, we have some substantial heat islands in the city still, not surprisingly. Those largely correspond to less economically advantaged communities, but we do have them throughout the city and we have them throughout District 7. The easiest and quickest way and most aesthetically pleasing way to combat that is by planting trees. So I would like to plant trees on every block, everywhere that we can. You do take a water hit with trees, but if they are truly native and drought tolerant trees, they're established within a couple of years, and then they're helping to cool and clean the air. So that's number 1. Number 2 is stepping up the timeline to get us to a majority renewables portfolio. We are on track to do that by 2030. I think we can do that substantially sooner and cut some fossil fuels from our portfolio before that time. We also need to really work to partner with Caltech to make solar sustainable and long-lasting, because right now we really can't store the energy we need to store. Third, we need to to create and promote and stick with conservation incentive programs. We have a tendency to create programs, to throw them out there and not really support them, and then we repeal them when no one takes advantage of them because they didn't know about them. Things like gray water conversion, solar conversion, incentivizing landscape changes, all of those things are things we should be doing in the city. And lastly, we need to improve our newly adopted food waste recycling programs, because food waste is one of the major generators of greenhouse gases. And right now the program is not so successful. It's off to an okay start. People don't really know it exists. We need to make it easier and more available. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Mr. Shay.
Well, I think for all intents and purposes, to improve our environment as a whole, we have to start one step at a time. I think in what we've initiated with preserving our water, reducing lanes in our certain streets, especially as I've been walking every day on Los Robles and Marengo. They've been reduced down to one lane both ways. All these different approaches are helping because it's forcing people to drive, primary issue. Then again, as I said about water, we're going to have to work closely with other outside sources to see how new testing with emissions in the sky, all these other things that's been brought up are going to really impact in the time. The reason I say this is because growing up here in Pasadena, we had stages of what was called smog back in the 70s that did not happen until we took small steps and implemented things that actually worked. We've even tried electrical carts and bikes here in Pasadena about a year, 2 years ago, putting stations out. They didn't work. We have to find things that actually work and that has a proven test result.
30 seconds.
So that's what I would like to see continue so that we can have a success on what we're doing instead of speculating on how we should get to bigger and bolder levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. John Kennedy.
The state of California requires that cities reduce their carbon footprint significantly by 2030. Specifically, the amount of energy generated from renewable portfolios. Pasadena is well on its way to meeting that obligation under the leadership of our various city managers, even all the way back to Cynthia Kurtz in terms of the leadership. She is now the interim city manager. Additionally, just about 3 weeks ago in District 3, we planted over 30 trees on Arbor Day. I suggest that we plant 3,000 trees. I like the number 3, it resonates with me. And why do we need to plant those trees? Because they create an envelope of healthy air for our residents. We can do that without a doubt. Also, I wrote the first recycling ordinance for the city of Pasadena when I was an employee, possibly 35 years ago. So I understand this area. It's an important area, and it is about the health of our children, our young people, our elderly, and everyone in between. I believe in zero waste. We must move in the direction of zero waste. So that includes composting. And we're on track to make significant achievements, make significant reductions in greenhouse gases here in the wonderful city of Pasadena. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And lastly, Mr. Lamar.
Thank you. I had the honor to speak to a group of maybe about 13 young people during the Leadership Pasadena Homegrown program that they had this weekend. and there was literally high school and junior college students there. And one thing that was so amazing to me, that it was just universal for all of them, that they're concerned about the environment, and where their environment will be when they turn 30, when they turn 40. And so some of the things that I'll say is, I think, as I stated before, I think we need to promote and expand our conservation programs. I think also there are some programs that we used to have that we don't have anymore, that we definitely need to bring those back. I think, as Jason already expounded to, our food recycling program, I think that we do have to expand that. But also, for me, I think that we have to expand it to apartment buildings. Right now, it's only for residential areas, as far as single family homes, but we also have to expand that to apartment buildings as well, because they hold the most people, right? And then, of course, we have to build more charging areas. And then another concept that, Alan had alluded to is that, we don't have the bikes no more. We don't have the scooters anymore. And I think one of the reasons why those did not really too much work,
30 seconds.
because they were not in the right areas. And I think we have to put them in the right areas so people can feel safe enough to use them and ride them and not misuse them. And the last thing that I'll say is what everybody has already said. And I'm really saying it because I sweat a lot. So I love trees. We definitely need to plant more trees around our city to have more shade. And so thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I want to commend all of you on the answers to the questions that were posed. And I will now invite each of you to make a 2-minute closing statement. As articulated at the beginning, we're going to go in reverse order so as to afford everyone an equal opportunity. And with that said, we're going to start with our closing statement by Mr. Lamar.
Thank you so much once again for the opportunity to be here tonight. It definitely kind of honor and a privilege to be able to be here. First of all, I hope I can earn you all's vote for District 3. As it already has been said, we have definitely made a good amount of work that we have done so far, but there's so much work that we have to do, and we need progressive voices and progressive action to take our district to the next level. Once again, I already stated that I'm tired of the shootings, I'm tired of the violence that has been happening, and there's nothing that we have actually put in place that's sustainable, that is keeping our young people safe and keeping our families safe. Of course, we need affordable housing, we need rent control, we need environmental safety, we need public safety, we need accountability. And so it's time for the next level. And, there's something that I've always said, and we're really good at it in Pasadena. We're really good for recycling leadership and not giving opportunity to the next leaders. And so I think now is the time to build up leaders, to sustain leaders and keep it going. And so I hope I can earn your vote in Pasadena. Everything that I'm saying that I'm hoping to do as a council member, I've already been doing it to help my community and uplift their voices and magnifying their voices or amplifying their voices in the community so far, when it comes to affordable housing, when it comes to workers' rights, when it comes to police safety, public safety, when it comes to reproductive rights. I've already been magnifying our voices in the community, and I think it's time for us to take it to the next level. So I hope to earn your support and your vote in this election. Thank you so much.
Mr. Kennedy.
I want to thank the Chamber, the Junior League, the League of Women Voters, the Pasadena National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, the First AME Church, and Community Women Vital Voices for sponsorship of this forum, as well as my fellow candidates for participating, and all of you in Pasadena for listening to us tonight. I'm running for re-election because I love our city. We have accomplished much, but we can do more. We can be better. We can build more housing so that all Pasadenans can afford a place to live and our children aren't priced out of Pasadena market. We can do more to protect our families from violence in our streets and neighborhoods by building and training a more effective and more empathetic police force. who can earn the trust and confidence of our families, and with that trust become effective at combating crime. We can do more to deliver municipal services to residents in every councilmatic district and not ignore parts of the city because they are perceived as politically less powerful. Most of all, we can work together across geographic, political, racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic boundaries because we are one city. And it is only by working together in good faith, bridging our differences, that we can together build one Pasadena. Thank you, one. Thank you all. And please vote for John Kennedy on 7 June. Thank you.
Alan Shay.
I'd like to thank all of the organizers for tonight's forum. I think it really is needed, especially in District 7, because the 3 candidates that's running right now are not proven in the sense of a city council person. However, in respect to my purpose for running in District 7 is because as a result of being a resident of District 7 the last few years, I have been a business owner in District 7 for over 35 years. And the thing that I have truly learned from walking through the community is really how important it is to have someone and has earned the awareness of the governance that your voice should be really listening to. And when I talk to the residents, they continue to say the same thing. They're asking, how can we have better public safety? How can we create real affordable housing? How can we restore South Lake Business District? How can we eradicate homelessness in Pasadena? All these things were steps that were done in Northwest Pasadena after the recession. And that was why I committed to becoming a Northwest Commissioner for almost 12 years to understand that process. And in doing so, it has prepared me and has given me the experience to advocate for those of you in District 7. And that is why I ask for your vote, to know that you have someone who has that experience and who loves Pasadena. Thank you.
And lastly, Jason Lyon.
Thank you. I will echo my fellow candidates in thanking all the organizers for tonight's event. And I want to thank my fellow candidates. I'm always inspired to hear from all of you. So thank you for being here. I started out by saying I love this city and I want to be of service to it. I think at some point in this country, we used to have a notion of servant leadership where people would step up for a finite period of time to offer their service to their community and then step aside to make room for other people. And we've replaced that with a notion of career politicians. I'm offering myself for a finite period of time to help in some issues that we need solving: our affordability crisis, our homelessness crisis, and our work to become an environmentally sustainable city. I'm the only candidate in District 7 with current real world experience addressing these issues. And I understand our district and our city, and I love it very much. I have been both a renter and a homeowner in Pasadena. I have been a business owner for 30 years. I am today a partner in Pasadena's 123-year-old law firm, Hahn & Hahn, which began as a very old line kind of law firm and has evolved today into being a women and minority-owned enterprise. And I am very, very proud to be a part of that organization. I am endorsed by business and labor, by Democrats and Republicans, and it is because I am not spouting political platitudes. I'm coming up with real world solutions to the problems our city faces. I would be honored to have your vote, and I ask for your vote on or before June 7th. Thank you.
Fantastic. And what a robust debate and a robust conversation. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And I hope that this was both informative and helpful as you decide who you'll vote for. I want to specifically thank my fellow board member, Charlotte Lacey of the Pasadena Humane Society and the Junior League of Pasadena, who did the most today to make what we experienced a tremendous forum. She was largely responsible for putting the forum together, and she acted as our timekeeper, and I got to say, quite diligently as well. Quite impressive. I too want to thank our community partners once again, and I want to thank the Pasadena media for hosting this event and broadcasting it live and on YouTube. So again, well wishes to you all. Have a great evening, and let's continue to make Pasadena the shining jewel when we talk about cities across this great land. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night.